Chair Fletcher, your microphone is muted.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Good morning. I will now call the regular meeting, Air Pollution Control Board meeting and Sanitation District meeting of February 10th, 2021 to order. I want to make a quick announcement before we begin. The 2021 State of the County will be held virtually Thursday, February 18th at 7 p.m. To RSVP for details and information around there, please visit supervisornathanfletcher.com. And interpretation will be available, including ASL, Spanish, Vietnamese, Filipino, Chinese, and Arabic. And we welcome all of the public to join us on Thursday, February 18th at 7 p.m. for the State of the County. With that, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Before I call the roll, I would like to note for the record that all 5 supervisors are participating via teleconference. As such, all votes will be handled by a roll call vote. Additionally, before we begin, any members of the public that wish to provide oral testimony during today's meeting, please review the instructions posted on the Clerk of the Board's webpage. I will remind members of the public that have requested to speak to wait to dial into the meeting until the item is called. With that, I will now call the roll. Supervisor Anderson?
Here.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Here.
Supervisor Desmond?
Here.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas here.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher here. With that, let's move to our closed session report. First item on our agenda today is this. I'll ask County Council to share any reportable actions.
The Board of Supervisors met in closed session starting at 2:51 p.m. and adjourning at 4:14 p.m. The Board took the following reportable actions. Item 15C, Jose Ramos et al. V. County of San Diego. With all 5 board members voting aye, authorize County Council to settle this case alleging breach of a lease for $54,486.56. Item 15F, the State of Ronnie Sandoval et al., V. County of San Diego et al. With all 5 board members voting aye, authorize County Council to file a petition for rehearing en banc with the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in this case alleging deliberate indifference to an inmate's medical care. Item 15G, Carson Clark, V. County of San Diego. With all 5 board members voting aye, authorize County Council to settle this workers' compensation case involving the death of a retired deputy sheriff for $260,000. Item 15H, David Morgan, V. County of San Diego. With all 5 board members voting aye, authorize County Council to settle this workers' compensation claim made by a retired deputy sheriff for $259,879.81.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is non-agendized public communication. This is the opportunity for the public to address the board on subject matters within our jurisdiction, but which are not on today's agenda. The only action the board may take is a referral to the Chief Administrative Officer. I'll ask the clerk if we have any requests for non-agendized public comment.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 8 requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda. Any members of the public that have requested to speak during non-agenda public communication, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided to you. As a reminder for the callers, if you requested to speak on a specific agenda item, please hang up and call back when the board begins discussion of that item. We will be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You'll hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the audio record. You will have 2 minutes to address the board. And you'll hear the sound when your time is up, so please conclude your comments at that time. And I'll remind the public speakers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. Erin, if you could please identify the first caller.
Yes, our first caller is 7234. 7234.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Great. Hi, my name is Terry Ann Skelly. I'm a mother of 3 adult sons. As a member of the San Diego County Tobacco Control Coalition, I know that American Lung recently issued the State of Tobacco Control for cities and counties in California. Excuse me. The report recognized the county's work in creating ordinances for tobacco and marijuana smoke-free and vape-free outdoor dining and for tobacco retailers licensing. My family thanks you for that. It is a clear example of the county's interest in clean air and protecting youth. However, the county's overall score was much lower than some San Diego cities because it has not done any policy work regarding tobacco and marijuana smoke and vape-free in multi-unit housing. This is definitely an equity issue since a large portion of financially challenged families and ethnically diverse individuals live in multi-unit housing, and children disproportionately live in apartments. Recently, Dr. Wooten, the county's health officer, sent letters to all of our cities recommending smoke-free and vape-free multi-unit housing policies in their housing element upgrades. Breathing air that is tobacco and marijuana, smoke and vape-free is right for all county residents. FYI, smoking and vaping is not a constitutionally protected right, which many court cases have upheld. One way to move in that direction, as the county looks at increasing their affordable housing supply, it is to make affordable housing complexes smoke and vape-free. Just think if your children had to grapple with living in an environment with tobacco and marijuana, smoke and vape, while they were eating, sleeping, playing, and studying. Not a healthy way we'd want them to live. Thank you for your help.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 3800. 3800.
Thank you. My name is Barbara Gordon. I want to thank you for recognizing February as Heart Health Month at your board meeting yesterday. We all need to take our heart healthy serious, as blood pressure is the most common underlying condition identified in the San Diego County's COVID-19 related deaths. We know that research regarding smoking tobacco is a major cause of high blood pressure, heart disease, and stroke. But did you also know that smoking marijuana is also associated with these same problems? A Harvard research review published January 28, 2020 in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology found that people who smoke marijuana faced a higher risk of dying of complications of high blood pressure than non-marijuana users. Most people with high blood pressure, known medically as hypertension, don't know they have it. With no symptoms or warning signs, it has earned the nickname as silent killer. High blood pressure is preventable. Daily exercise, healthy diet, and not smoking of any kind, marijuana or tobacco, are the keys to keeping your blood pressure under control. I hope all will take the precautions that will keep our hearts healthy. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 9364. 9364.
Hi, this is Michelle Krug. The first thing I'd like to ask is I appreciate Mr. Potter having provided a way for me to try to listen in on the meetings. I am blind. He did send me a link, but I'm having difficulty on my phone maintaining a link. I don't have internet in my house. I'm an elder senior that has been at home since March without internet. But I'm asking for you to take expedited action on getting the listening line put back in. I did speak with friends of mine that are part of Communication Workers of America, the union workers for AT&T, and they said that that's easy to, if there's an access number, to have put in a line even on a temporary basis. So I just ask you to look into that so that people without that access of the internet do have the ability to participate in our government. Secondly, I am on one of the committees, the Persons with Disabilities for the county, and I am asking the supervisors to look at having all of the committees, boards, and commissions recorded so that people, again, have access to being able to see what's going on with the 102 organizations that are meant to advise the Board of Supervisors. Thank you very much. I'm more than happy to have a longer conversation offline if anyone has questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 4592. 4592.
Good morning, Supervisors. This is Kathleen Lippitt here. I wanted to speak about the money behind the marijuana industry. Voters are frequently reminded that the people spoke on Prop 64, and when the people speak, good things happen. That trope is used by public electeds whenever they roll out proposals that appear to serve the predatory industry of addiction instead of the people. Who really spoke in that measure? those with economic conflicts of interest and out-of-state billionaires spent over $35 million in paid signature gatherers. Grassroots opponents managed to raise $1.1 million. So it is reasonable to ask whether it was the people who spoke or money. The Government Accountability Institute recently published a 72-page report of their investigation into the $21 billion marijuana industry influence. It emphasized the need to expose economic conflicts of interest of government officials, public electeds, and those appointed by public leaders. In the interest of public disclosure and transparency, the public has a right to know what those conflicts are. Campaign contributions or family members who profit from marijuana businesses are not irrelevant. When a framework for the future of San Diego's residents claims to be following the science, working towards social equity and social justice, clearly, but common sense tells us it's serving the industry, it insults the public's intelligence. This is not following the science that has continued to document the harms of growing marijuana commercial industry, especially to youth, but ignoring it. With obvious financial influence, without obvious financial influence, the priorities of those proposals on January 27th would have reflected leadership and dedication to San Diego communities, addressed health inequities, and improved quality of life.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 9444. 9444. Oh.
Hello.
We're having a hard time hearing you, 9444. Can you please check to see if your phone is muted on your end?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Okay. Sorry about that. My name is Rebecca, and I'm a San Diego resident. And I apologize. This is my first time calling into a board meeting. I am just a concerned citizen and regarding the COVID-19 vaccination website. My grandmother is 80 years old. She's a Mexican American. She's part of the Latino community. She's actually in supervisor. Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. Sorry. She's in the supervisor number 4's district or area. And so she was having a hard time booking a vaccination appointment. So she was given 2 specific numbers. So she was calling every single day and wasn't able to get an appointment. And so I went to help her. So I went to the website and realized as a Latin, a member of the Latin community, I can see why it's cumbersome and why it's a challenge and why the population of vaccination is so low in Southern County area as well as East County, and why a lot of the more affluent areas are getting vaccinated. They have the means to be able to book an appointment online or have a family member or have someone in their community to assist them, where in the Latin community, it's a little bit challenging to book online, especially if you're in your 80s. And so when I helped her, it took me several tries and I had to fill out fairly high number of forms in order to even get to the final page of if there's an available appointment. So luckily I was able to get her an appointment for the Petco Superstation, but I just as a concerned citizen and realized there needs to be better community outreach in helping these people. It shouldn't just rely on churches or a millennial, grandchild to help them. So I would just say, if you guys have an opportunity, really look at this website, look at other maybe tech companies. I personally work for a tech company that has one of the best kind of framework and platforms. So I just say, look at an opportunity to improve that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 8923. 8923. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Janet Mulder, and I am from Hummel. I am a member and secretary of the Hummel-Dulzar Community Planning Group, but I am calling as an individual today. I'm calling in regards to your cannabis vote that you took yesterday. I'm going to ask, why are you recommending these changes to the backcountry? People really don't want cannabis sold in their communities as it draws a criminal element. There are lots of dispensaries, in the cities to get cannabis, and it would only create traffic out here in our unincorporated area. We were told that Proposition 64 was, and I'm quoting, overwhelmingly supported, unquote, which just isn't true. Only 57% of the votes supported it. Hardly consider that overwhelming. Almost half of us voted no. The proposition did say that communities would be able to determine whether or not they wanted to allow it within their community and not to be mandated as a total county. In 2017, please remember that the Board of Supervisors voted to prohibit permits for new medical facilities with the 2035 sunset clause. It's important to also note that in Colorado, the sheriff and DA both opposed the proposition, and it was proven that it did not eliminate the drug cartel, and in fact, increased the number of cartels in Colorado after the law was implemented. My suggestion is that we ask our supervisors to support the existing ordinance, realizing that cannabis is actually marijuana, and it is a gateway drug, giving greater accessibility to youth. The more on the market, the greater the exposure to kids. Evidence exists through the sheriff that in the city of Chula Vista, on any given block, there were more illegal shops than legal selling on the black market. I'm not sure where the Farm Bureau is on this ordinance, but I do know that they need to agree to only cultivation. Hopefully, they will also see the terrific problem. It is interesting to note that the two supervisors promoting this proposal do not have unincorporated areas within their district, so they do not have a handle on how much more inappropriate it is to allow these businesses to operate in the rural backcountry rather than within their cities. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 2965. 2965. If you'd like to address the board on non-agenda public communication, please press *6 to unmute yourself. If not, we will go on to, here we go.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. I'm KB Strange, pharmacist in Escondido, and I called in yesterday to receive an update on COVID, not understanding that the item 2 COVID update would be so much later in the morning. So I listened to public comment and Supervisor Nora Vargas's comments regarding item 11, the Tijuana River Valley Conservancy Project, and her declaration regarding health equity for her South Bay region where I grew up. Thank you, Nora. My pharmacy is minority owned, and most of the employees belong to that same ethnic minority. I have often listened to their conversations regarding their families and how they're coping with COVID and how grateful they are for their jobs. So I concur with public speaker yesterday who expressed gratitude to the supervisors like Lawson, Reamer, Anderson, and Desmond, who seem to understand what having a job means to self-worth and survival. I must also say that our pharmacy serves the Valley Center and Fallbrook area communities, and I feel like I'm in touch with the health needs of those communities. So I'm surprised that a new Board of Supervisors would be in such a rush to enable marijuana businesses into those communities where there is no interest in them. I hear and read comments about taxes that could be collected from marijuana businesses, which would be reinvested in the community. And I think you bet those taxes will be needed to be put back into the community and matched and more, because proliferating marijuana businesses in North County's rural communities will demonstrate an acceptance and a leniency for marijuana and drug use in general, especially by our young adults. So it will be just tax money in, healthcare cost out, with healthcare cost and human cost being far, far greater than any tax gain. So what's behind this rush to do this without good input from our rural communities? I hope it isn't money. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 6598. 6598. If you'd like to address the board on non-agenda public communication, please press star 6 to unmute yourself. Chair Fletcher, that's our last speaker on non-agenda public communication, and that person does not seem to be unmuting themselves to speak at this point.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you to all of the callers for calling in. Next on our agenda is approval of the minutes, statement of proceedings for the meeting of Wednesday, January 27th, 2021. Is there a motion and a second for approval?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Supervisor Anderson, second by Vice Chair Vargas. Ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Aye. Vargas.
Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We'll now proceed with the formation of the consent agenda. I'll ask the clerk if there's any items the public wishes to be pulled for discussion.
Thank you. Item 1 has been pulled by the public. Item 2 has been pulled by the public. Item 4 has been pulled by the public. Item 7 has been pulled by the public. And item 8 has been pulled by the public. All the remaining items on the Board of Supervisors agenda, as well as the County of San Diego Air Pollution Control Board and County of San Diego Sanitation District, may be placed on the consent calendar for your board's consideration.
Thank you. I'll now move to my colleagues, starting with Supervisor Anderson.
No, nothing to pull. And by the way, if you need a motion, I'll give you the motion now too, if you like.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Anderson. Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Sorry, couldn't figure out how to unmute for a second. Yeah, nothing to pull.
All right. Is that a second?
Second.
Second. Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no other items to pull. I just want to make a quick comment on item 5. I want to say thank you to our Public Works Department. Staff has worked closely with the utility owners, Caltrans, and other agencies in the jurisdiction within the bridge right-of-way to complete the final design here. Is the Live Oak Creek Bridge in the Fallbrook area. This project will enhance driver safety, meet stormwater requirements, and complete a project that's been in the works since 2011 for almost a decade now. So I appreciate this going on consent and appreciate my colleagues' support on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Desmond. Vice Chair Vargas.
No, Chair, nothing to pull. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion by Supervisor Anderson, seconded by Supervisor Lawson-Remer to adopt the consent calendar agenda. I'll ask the clerk before we call the vote to just confirm for the public those items that will be discussed at today's meeting and then call the vote.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. The items that will be discussed by the board this morning will be items 1, 2, 4, 7, and 8. With that, Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Bless you.
Thank you. We will now go into our agenda items, starting with agenda item 1. This was continued from the January 13th, 2021 meeting surrounding the El Monte River Valley and acquisition of property. I'll ask first if we have a brief staff presentation.
Yes, there is a brief staff presentation, and any members of the public that have requested to speak on this item, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided to you. You will be muted until it is your turn to speak. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher and members of the board. Today's board requested action is to approve acquisition of property in the El Monte River Valley. The El Monte River Valley property is owned by Helix Water District and is highlighted in yellow on this slide. Can you catch up with the slide? and is highlighted in yellow on this slide. It's located south of Willow Road in the community of Lakeside and is bisected by Ashwood Street. The property is adjacent to Cactus County Park to the south and is close to Lewis Stelzer Park to the north and the future Lakeside Equestrian Park to the northwest here. The Helix Water District Board of Directors formally declared this property surplus in March of 2020. Under Public Resources Code, the San Diego River Conservancy has the first right of refusal to acquire the surplus property, as they are public lands suitable for park and open space within the Conservancy's jurisdiction. In early September of last year, the San Diego River Conservancy Governing Board determined that the County of San Diego could negotiate the purchase of the property for open space and park use. If Helix and the county are unable to agree upon the terms of the purchase and sale, the Conservancy will retain the first right of refusal. On 16 September, Supervisor Jacob brought forth a board action to express the county's interest in acquiring the Helix surplus property to keep the lands in public ownership. The board directed staff to develop an acquisition plan to purchase approximately 98 acres and return to the board by December with recommendations if negotiations with Helix were successful. On 9 December, staff returned to the board with the acquisition plan, including pricing and property improvement options. At that hearing, the board directed staff to continue negotiating with Helix and return to the board for approval of the acquisition. The negotiated price for the property is $2.92 million. Next slide. To give some regional context, this property is in the El Monte Valley near Lake Jennings, the El Monte Pond, the county's historic flume trail, and the adjacent proposed El Monte sand mining project. The El Monte sand mining project is not a part of the proposed acquisition. It is an independent project that is currently being processed by Planning and Development Services. There are 3 existing leases on the property. The existing leases outlined here in red would be transferred to the county to be managed by the Department of General Services if the county acquires the subject 98 acres. The leases currently generate approximately $14,500 per year that would help fund park operations and maintenance. 2 of the leases are for equestrian uses, Embry-Pillsbury Enterprises expiring in 2022, and the Tumbleweed Riding Club expiring in June of this year. The 3rd lease is for Little League Youth Baseball. The league has approximately 30 years remaining on its original 50-year term. Jason Hemmons, Deputy Director for Departments of Parks and Rec, will now present some operational considerations associated with the proposed acquisition.
Thank you, Marco. As directed by the board on September 16, 2020, county staff assessed the property to determine whether the proposed acquisitions could provide some benefits to the community. Staff determined that keeping the property in public ownership has some potential to provide opportunities for future trail connections and recreational amenities while retaining existing youth baseball, equestrian uses, and open space habitat. While there may be some potential community benefits during the property assessment of the site, staff also identified conditions that were not desirable and would require improvements if acquired. The county typically requires the seller of a property to resolve issues with the property prior to sale. However, Helix Water District will only agree to sell the property in its current as-is condition. Improvements needed include removal or reduction of fire hazards, cleaning of homeless encampments, habitat restoration, and property protection. 30 of the 40 acres of open space is degraded due to homeless encampments, trash, debris, and invasive vegetation, including eucalyptus, pepper, and tamarisk trees. As such, the site would require restoration if purchased by the county. In its current degraded state, this open space area could not be counted toward the county's multiple species conservation program, Preserve Land. Additionally, the ball field complex is in an advanced state of disrepair and would require major upgrades to meet current county park standards. The fields need major rehabilitation, have faulty utility infrastructure, do not have accessible passive travel, contain broken picnic tables and bleachers, lack permanent restroom facilities, and there is a concession stand that requires major improvements. Since the as-is condition will require extensive time to rehabilitate the site, staff presented options to the board on December 9, 2020, which I will go over on the next slide. County staff presented to the board the following options for site cleanup and improvements, seeking board direction. The board had 3 options on potential improvements. Option A includes completing baseline improvements such as vegetation management, property protection, site cleanup, and funding for equipment. The cost of option A is $259,000. Option B includes completing baseline improvements and making an initial investment to the sports complex, including ADA improvements, demolition and replacement of a concession stand, repairs to the existing irrigation system and water well pump, and replacement of site amenities, including picnic tables and bleachers. The cost of option B is $1,959,000. Option C includes the aforementioned enhancements and improving the baseball complex to county standards used at other similar sports facilities, including new ADA restrooms and paved pathways to create a fully inclusive sports complex, and installation of smart irrigation system that improves the field conditions while conserving water. The cost of option C is $2.9 million. These options do not include habitat restoration and would assume if the property was acquired, the open space would remain disturbed habitat due to the extensive costs required for restoration. On December 9th, the board chose option A, directing staff, if the acquisition is approved and after the county acquires the property, to spend up to $259,000 completing baseline improvements such as vegetation management, property protection, site cleanup, and funding for equipment. In order to manage the site, annual total operating costs are estimated at $230,000 beginning in fiscal year 21-22. Due to the as-is conditions and need for ongoing patrols and enforcement, site management will require the addition of 2 full-time equivalent positions, which will be included in the fiscal year 21-22 operational plan for the Department of Parks and Recreation. The proposed funding source for the ongoing costs are annual lease payments and new general purpose revenue, which would be included in fiscal year 21-22 operational plan. As mentioned previously, the Helix property has the potential to provide opportunities for future trail connections in the region. The map shows the potential trail options across the property as shown as option A. However, if the county does not choose to buy the property, there may be an opportunity to work with Helix to obtain a trail easement or make the trail connection off the property as shown on the screen. Based on previous board direction, the actions for your consideration include authorize the purchase of approximately 98 acres from Helix for $2,922,900, and authorize the Director of the Department of General Services to take all actions necessary to administer the 3 existing leases that will be assigned to the county as part of the proposed purchase, or provide staff with other direction on how to proceed. This concludes our presentation, and staff are available to answer any questions.
Thank you for that. I know we have a number of board members that are going to have thoughts on this. If there's any board members who have questions now, we can do that, or we can go to public comment and then come back and discuss this item. I see Supervisor Anderson, you have a question for staff before public comment?
I do. When you looked at slide 12, it showed ballparks with grass and not completely in disrepair. Are those the same ballparks that we saw that were missing or, that you couldn't use the bleachers? Are they the same disrepaired ones in the previous pictures? Where there's no grass, it's just dirt.
Supervisor Anderson, yes, that's a Google Earth image. Those are the same ball fields. The photos are their existing conditions.
And for clarity purpose, some people in the community have put out information publicly that's patently false. They say that if we purchase this, that will stop the sand mine in El Monte project. Is that correct? Will it stop it in any way, shape, or form?
Supervisor Anderson, we have Ashley Smith here with Planning and Development Services to answer that question. Thank you.
Supervisor Anderson, through the chair, that is not correct. The sand mining operation that is proposed on the adjacent site will still be able to continue through the process. That will include a public review period of their CEQA document and then public hearings.
And then I looked in our agenda and I noticed that we're spending on the Star Ranch purchase, we're spending $3,600 an acre for just over 2,000 acres of pristine habitat. But it looks like we're spending almost $30,000 per acre on this project, and it's far from pristine. Is that correct? Are my numbers right?
Yes, Supervisor, the numbers are correct.
So this project, if moving forward, when you add up the money to restore the habitat, when you add the cost of bringing everything up to speed, I believe it's going to be $9 million in its final version. Are my numbers correct, or am I off?
Yes, sir, you're correct.
And so why is it that Helix chose not to maintain this land and then charged us above? Was this purchase price above the appraised price, our appraised price?
Yes, Supervisor, it was in between our appraised price and their appraised price. We've used different appraisal methods, and it was above our market value appraised price.
Well, I'd really like for them in the future to use the Star Ranch appraising price, because $3,600 seems like much more reasonable. But why is it that, as a public agency, they allow this land to foul and are not responsible for fixing it up and cleaning it, and allowed all the disrepair? I mean, why are we paying extra to fix their problem?
Just one thing, Supervisor. If you can ask staff money questions, process questions, not judgment questions. The judgment questions are really reserved for the Board of Supervisors.
Well,
so we can just direct staff.
I was looking in terms of history that there may have been something stated. I wasn't on the board then, so
yeah.
I wasn't trying to be factual, but there may have been something historical. They said, well, this is more important in the presentation because I wasn't there. Do you remember, Chair Fletcher, do you remember, was there something stated why we should pay extra to inherit other people's problems?
I do not. I know that they had an appraisal number that was different than our appraisal number, and the ultimate settlement on it was somewhere between the two appraised values of the land.
Okay. I don't know if this is possible, but I'd like to make a substitute motion if I may, moving forward.
One second, Supervisor. There's no motion on the table, so you can't make a substitute motion. You can just.
Could I just make a motion then?
You could, yes.
Okay, this is what I'd like to do. We wouldn't proceed with the purchase of this property. 2, we would direct the Director of Department of General Services in consultation with the Director of Department of Parks and Recreation to identify a replacement property or properties with pristine habitat identified within the MSCP planning area for potential purpose with previously appropriated funds within the geographic boundaries of District 2, and return to the board as necessary for further action. 3, send a letter to the board chair of Helix Water District and their board of directors, urging them to dedicate the property for public use as an open space in regional use, with the trail to be incorporated in the county system of trails in coordination with the County Department of Parks and Recreation. Well, my wife.
I'm sorry, is that a second?
Is there a second? I'm sorry, I spoke over you.
I'll second Desmond.
My wife and I use the trails. We're not opposed to the trails, but I just think that Helix should step up and play a bigger role in this. And I don't think this is in the best interest of the district. And so that's why I oppose it. And that's why I think this item with my new motion would be in better shape.
Got it. If there's other questions for staff, we can do that. If not, I want to go to public comment, and then we can come back for board deliberation after public comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. All right, seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call our speakers on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Also note for the record that we received 19 e-comments on this item. We have 13 requests to speak. I would ask those individuals that requested to speak on this item to please dial into the conference line now. We will be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You'll hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the audio record. You will have 2 minutes to address the board. You'll hear this sound when your time is up, so please conclude your comments at that time. And I'd remind the public speakers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. Aaron, if you could please identify the first caller.
Yes, our first caller is 4624. 4624. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Am I clear to speak?
Yes, you may proceed.
Okay. My name is Judy Shore. I'm a resident of Lakeside. I'm speaking today in support of the land acquisition in El Monte Valley. Joel Anderson has already issued a press release indicating that this land acquisition, quote, doesn't make sense, unquote. I thought the process for coming to a vote on issues before the board was to first allow public to weigh in on the subject, have the board consider all aspects, and then come to a decision. I find it disturbing that he's already decided. Joel Anderson said in his press release that Helix Water District should, quote, maintain ownership of public lands in its trust, and that the water district has a fiduciary and ethical responsibility to the community and should not sell the El Monte parcels for profit. It's all fine and good to tell the water district what you think they should do, but that horse has left the gate. The water district has put the land up for sale. And just because you think they shouldn't sell it does not change the fact that they are selling it, which leads to the fact that this board has that very same fiduciary and ethical responsibility to this community and should buy that land to protect it from inappropriate development. This land could be held for many years, as is in conservancy, before any more funds are spent on a trail system open space portion of it. Securing it for now would be enough. There are also many volunteers to help with needed upgrades, I'm sure. The price of the land cannot be likened to the Star Ranch property in Campo at all. The El Monte Valley is more accessible to the population, was part of the trail system used by Native peoples long ago that went all the way to Four Corners. It is culturally and ecologically significant. The purchase price is based on a valid appraisal, which does not compare to the Star Ranch value property. El Monte Valley has far more importance to the vision of an El Capitan Dam to Coast Trail system, to the Native peoples, residents, and visitors to this area. And we also do know that the sand mine is not a part of this acquisition. I initiated an online petition 10 days ago to approve this acquisition. The day I sent it to you, there were around 1,500 signatures. Since Monday, it has grown to over 2,000. The signatures come from all over the county, not just East County. This acquisition is supported by more than just a handful of Lakeside residents. It is for the good and the wishes of all San Diego County. A no vote does not represent the majority of his constituents. I'm asking you to approve this and say yes to the vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your time is up. Thank you.
Our next speaker is 6048. 6048.
Good morning. My name is Robin Bodecker. I live in the Claremont neighborhood of San Diego and have a little ranch in El Monte Valley. This is my getaway and place to recharge my mind and soul. I want to urge you to give us a yes vote on purchasing this parcel in El Monte Valley. It has provided a great variety of trails for hikers and horseback riders to enjoy for many years. This opportunity to get in touch with nature needs to be preserved for current and future visitors and residents. This valley is threatened with sand mining operations. I realize it does threaten the health of residents of the valley and adjacent neighborhoods in Lakeside. And it certainly can adversely affect the large aquifer in this valley with pollution and decreased availability of clean water, which we depend on. But I'm hoping that your acquisition of the property will at least preserve the trails and usefulness of this beautiful valley. In the areas of San Diego, the wildlife is certainly dwindling, and we continue to decimate our native plants and wildlife. It's a real treat to be able to get a taste of what this area would have been like before it was developed. Your support in protecting the wildlife, fauna, and natural beauty in this picturesque valley is vital. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 2503. 2503.
Hello.
Good morning.
My name is Joan Embry Pillsbury, and I've lived in Lakeside for over 40 years. My husband and I have leased a 23-acre parcel, part of the 98 acres, for over 30 years and run a community riding club across the street from our ranch. Our current lease runs through October 2022 and has a 5-year extension option. We have approximately 300 members who pay a nominal fee to cover insurance and operating expenses. We paid the property taxes for the past years, picked up 1 mile of trash weekly on public roads surrounding the property, planted over 130 trees and maintained them, maintained the grounds, allowed free usage for mounted police groups, worked with El Capitan High School special education students for the past 8 years, and have had many charitable events and fundraisers. We've held equestrian clinics and shows for dressage, jumping, driving, cutting, and barrel racing. Facility improvements have been created to provide for all disciplines of equestrian use, including arenas, lights, dressage court, tie racks, lunge pins, a 1 mile perimeter riding track, and trail access. We host the local riding club, the local team penning club, and various other equestrian groups. I also run a nonprofit for wildlife conservation and education and train high school and college students in wildlife management using the club facilities for various activities and parking. My recently deceased husband and I have spent well over $500,000 to date on this facility. I support this purchase, but I want to keep my current lease in place and if possible be given an option to purchase the 23 acres at the end of my lease. I would suggest a conservation easement on this property, and will say the reason it's disturbed is because it's been used extensively for recreational uses for many years. It's very accessible to the community, and if sold to other than the county, all uses are in jeopardy. It needs protection now. This could be our last chance to save it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 5250. 5250.
My name is Kenny Ramos. I'm from the Brona Band of Mission Indians, and I grew up on the Brona Indian Reservation, but have lived pretty much most of my life in Lakeside. I graduated from El Capitan High School. I played Little League on those fields in question, and I just want to urge the Board of Supervisors to continue with this acquisition. This land is important, not just to my tribal nation culturally, but I think to all of us that live here in Lakeside and that enjoy the environment in terms of the energy of this place, but also the rural aspect of the area's character. I think this is an opportunity to really preserve a piece of the land and just have something accessible, not just for the residents of Lakeside, but as Ms. Pillsbury just mentioned, to other people from outside the county or from outside of Lakeside to come and enjoy really the land and what the land has to offer us as Native and non-Native people together. Anyway, I just want to voice my opinion that it is in the best interest of our community here, from my viewpoint, to continue with this acquisition in order to conserve what land we have left that is undeveloped. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 9923. 9923.
Hello, my name is Holly Pillsbury. My family owns a ranch on the Willow Road. We manage the adjacent community riding club, which is part of the property acquisition by the county. We approve the land acquisition with the continuation of our current lease to manage the club. We believe this valley should be preserved for all to enjoy its amazing habitat. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 2243. 2243.
Terry Bingham. Helix has historically betrayed San Diegans regarding El Monte land. That is exactly why San Diegans need this board. The El Monte land sits above our aquifer. Do not put San Diego's water at risk. You got more than 200 emails in support of this acquisition because El Monte land is high priority. Existing trails need preserving. COVID made public spaces valuable. 200 people plus equestrians walked existing trails Saturday to get your attention. It makes sense to buy land in the most beautiful valley we've got, our Yosemite. It makes no sense to buy fenced off land in Campo at Star Ranch. Campo is a desert by the border infested with drugs. Star Ranch is an hour away. We prefer our local trails in El Monte. I'd pay more per acre for my ranch in El Monte than the reasonable appraisal price you got. Homes in El Monte sell for up to $1.5 million. El Monte is a high-value land area. It's patent suggest it will take $9 million to restore. The existing trails are cleaned. The Pillsbury's clean them. The Lakeside Rivers Conservatory cleans them. Endangered species live there. El Monte land must be bought. Supervisor Jacob worked for us for 27 years. She knows land value. She knew exactly what her constituents want. She put this together. It was unanimously approved. San Diegans want this new board to know how valuable the land in El Monte is. This El Monte parcel was appraised undervalue. It's a great deal. Facilitate our unanimous request. We do not want junk land in Campo as a replacement. We don't want supervisors to think for us. We want them to vote according to our wishes. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 2400. 2400.
Hi, my name is Robin Reardon. I'm the Executive Director of Lakeside River Park Conservancy. I have been working with Helix and with the other property owners on this acquisition for approximately 5 years. We sat down together to decide how it would be best to serve the public to put this property into conservation, and we came up at Supervisor Jacob's leadership with the concept that the county would be the best source for this, the best place for this land to go. But we need to be careful and clear about what this vote means. If you vote against it, Helix will still move forward with it, but I believe the opportunity for first right of refusal by all of our jurisdictions will be closed. That means that this property will go on the open market. You have said that it has nothing to do with the sand mine, but I would like to change your opinion a little bit. The last piece of property that was sold in the El Monte Valley by the Helix Water District, that acquisition, that sale was initiated by the sand miners. They wanted more land to sand mine. So now we have a situation where other jurisdictions cannot weigh in and acquire the property. It will go on the public market, and all of the other conservancies, such as myself or the Kumeyaay Daniel Land Conservancy, will be shut out of that process because we will not be able to raise the money fast enough to meet the acquisition target. This is a way to allow the sand miners to expand their footprint. Make no mistake about it. Secondly, there are species throughout El Monte Valley. This piece of property is not just disconnected from everything else. This property was considered for inclusion in the MSCP and was withdrawn by Helix early on in the early 2000s, I believe, because of the golf course that is now the sand mine. But if you look at the species, and I'm more than happy to provide you with a list of species that occur in the El Monte Valley, you will find that many of them are covered species. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 1590. 1590.
Good morning, Supervisors. This is Bertha Rodriguez with Climate Action Campaign, which is a member of the San Diego Green New Deal Alliance, calling in to ask you all to vote yes on the finalization of the sale of El Monte Valley. El Monte Valley is an important valley in the San Diego region with its historical connection to the cultural and recreational experiences. With your vote today, we will be protecting not only a diverse habitat, but an important site of indigenous cultural heritage. You will also be preventing further sprawl, which is critical strategy to ensure a climate-safe future and protect our communities from wildfires. Your support on this acquisition will illustrate your commitment to the community, equity, and climate action. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 1595. 1595. 159.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman Fletcher and board members. My name is Michael Beck, and I'm speaking today as an individual, not representing any organization, and I'd like to address the 23-acre Embry lease under discussion. It's my understanding that today's board action, should the board move forward with the acquisition, does not address the future disposition of the Embry-Pillsbury lease area when it expires. Specifically, I'd like to recommend that the board include in any motion to approve a guarantee that existing uses under the lease can continue, which I believe I heard in the staff report, and that prior to the expiration of the lease, the county enter into an option agreement with Ms. Embry at fair market value to purchase that 23 acres. A covenant can be included in a purchase agreement guaranteeing that future uses be consistent with the public benefits that the county envisions, and or the county be given the first option to repurchase if and when Ms. Embry chooses to sell, thus guaranteeing the future of the site. Joan and her husband, Dwayne, invested over 30 years in improving and maintaining the site, as you heard from Joan, for multiple community benefits. Existing uses of the property are consistent with the public amenities that the county envisions for the purchase area. It makes no sense for the county to expend public funding on maintaining a site that is already being managed to the highest standards at no cost to the public. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. And that concludes public testimony on this item. Chair Fletcher.
Thank you. Thank you to all of the callers who called in today. I appreciate the debate and discussion, and we will get into it with further board deliberation. I believe this was a unanimous vote by prior boards to move forward, and I appreciate that there are new supervisors who were not here, and perhaps old supervisors who have changed their mind. But I continue to believe that this is an important component of a broader effort around preserving open space and investing in a piece of land that has tremendous connectivity with our trail systems. It has a great restorative effect and is a part of a broader effort around the San Diego River and the San Diego River Conservancy projects. I think we have the ability to take what is clearly a property that has distress and problems and is not a good asset for the community and really make it something very wonderful for the community. I also appreciate and respect how important this is to our tribal community and our tribal partners in the Kumeyaay. And so I think that there's a tremendous opportunity for really preserving an open space and doing something that I think for many decades down the line, if we are successful, people will look back and say that they got it right. But with that, let's go to Supervisor Lawson Reamer, and then we'll hear from the other members of the board.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Just to build on the outpouring of public comments, this morning we received a petition signed by over 2,000 San Diegans urging us to vote for this acquisition. And certainly I am inspired by this outpouring of public support. I think the public and e-comments are really a tribute to how precious and how sacred the value and this parcel specifically are to the people of Lakeside. Not really discussed here today yet, was a pretty extraordinary event that took place this past weekend with more than 100 residents gathered next to the Walker Trail Preserve who march across Lakeside to the parcel to ask us to complete this purchase and protect this land. I do very much want to thank the residents of Lakeside and the Kumeyaay Nation for their enduring commitment to preserve and protect the El Monte Valley, which is one of our county's true hidden jewels. So towards that end, if I may, I'd like to make a substitute motion that we move ahead with to approve the acquisition of the Helix parcel as originally outlined in the initial board items submitted for our approval today. Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Right, we have a substitute motion by Supervisor Lawson Reamer, seconded by Vice Chair Vargas. Any additional board comments or discussion on this item?
Yes, I have a question, Chair.
Supervisor Desmond.
In the price of the property here and the cleanup, it's kind of, I'm looking at this as one public agency didn't take care of the land So we're having to come in and fix it up, which, you know, is a noble cause, but you know, why, I'm just curious, in the price, does it include the amount that we are, for the restoration and cleaning up of this neglected land? Does it include that or discount it at all based on the condition?
Supervisor, the acquisition price has not changed as a result of the condition of the property?
So we're paying full price for a piece of property that wasn't, to me, this is, you know, this is, we're cleaning up somebody else's mess, which quite frankly, you know, we end up doing a lot, but it just doesn't seem, you know, if this was a privately held property, we would make the landowner responsible for it. But since it's a government entity, it just doesn't sit right with me that the fact that we're having to pay for the cleanup of land that somebody else didn't take care of.
It feels a little bit like what we did with the water project up in Borrego a little bit.
Not at all.
All right. Any other board member comments or discussions?
I'm trying to be mindful of where we're going, and I want to work on projects together with everybody. In the substitute motion, would you be willing to also, because I will withdraw my motion, if we're able to put the full 9 million in, so the restoration's all right. What I'm worried about is we buy it, we put $259,000 into it. I'm stuck with a blight. Board now loses its interest, and we're no further ahead except for we now own this land that's absolutely useless in its condition. And it strikes me that if we're going to do it, and you all feel so strongly about it, then we should be fully committed and finance the whole thing. And I don't care if we save over the next 5 years, but I don't know where that next dollar is going to come. And I'm going to inherit homeless encampment. I'm going to inherit all these issues in my district, and everyone can feel good after this vote, but they've done nothing to improve the district and what it is. I want to hold Helix responsible for the blight. I want them to fix it. I'm not opposed to working with them, but I don't think that county taxpayers should be subsidizing what Helix Water District ratepayers should be responsible for. And what we're doing is we're now taking it. The goal of the trail, I'm fully on board with, not against it. But the question is, should the county be paying for their neglect? And that's the rub for me. And I'm not interested in unwinding stuff to the extent of the outcome being the same. But let's fund it fully. If you all feel this strongly about it, then don't go halfway, throw $259,000 when we know it's over $3 million. Let's do the full $3 million and maybe parcel it out over a 3-year period in the repair.
Thank you, Supervisor. Let's ask council to just walk us through what our options are as it relates to appropriating additional funds.
Yes, Chair Fletcher, you could change the level of improvements to be completed and the related appropriations, but that is not currently within the scope of today's noticed hearing, so you would need to do that at a future board meeting.
Okay. Is there any reason why we couldn't come back with this, with something that we all can agree on and deliver for my constituents?
Supervisor Anderson, what I would commit to do with you is work with you to bring back a board letter to make those investments, and I would do that with you, and I think we could potentially do that at our next scheduled board meeting, because I do think it's important. We want to deliver something great for the community, and you have my commitment that I want to do that, and I want this to really be improved and a great asset in your district. And so I would commit to work with you to bring something back. We'd have to draft it, notice it, docket it, but you would have my commitment to do that. I think today, I think it's important we move forward with the purchase, and then we rapidly get to work on making sure the commitment and the promise is fulfilled.
If Super Desmond is comfortable with it as the second, I would withdraw my motion to make it simpler with your commitment moving forward to fully fund this, because, you know, I'm not against the project. I just don't believe that my district should be paying for another district's peccadillos.
Understood. Supervisor Desmond, are you comfortable with the maker of the motion wants to withdraw his motion? It requires the consent of the seconder.
Yes.
Okay. I think Supervisor Vargas, I saw you had your hand up. I don't know if that was before.
That was before, and I just wanted to support, preserving this land, but I think most of it has been said already, and I'm prepared to vote.
Okay. Supervisor Lawson-Remer, any final thoughts?
I just want to build on that commitment you made to Supervisor Anderson. I'm also committed to work with you. I would like to note that there are, I think, additional sources of funding that we can pursue for restoration outside of our county budget, and I'm happy to work with you to go chase down that money and bring it home to your district.
Wonderful. All right, we have a motion by Supervisor Lawson-Remer, seconded by myself to move forward with recommendations 1 through 3 outlined in the board letter. I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Thank you. We will move to agenda item number 2. This has been continued and continued and continued, and today we will not continue it. We will land the plane on this item. So I'm excited to do this. I believe we have a staff presentation on this item. We'll give them a chance to reset there.
While they're getting reset, any members of the public that have requested to speak on this item, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided to you. You will be muted until it is your turn to speak. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher and Supervisors. I'm Rami Tali, Deputy Director in the Department of Planning and Development Services. I'm joined by Scott Chrisman. Today, we are presenting options to streamline renewable energy projects in unincorporated San Diego County. This is not the county's first initiative to promote renewable energy development. In 2013, the county adopted the Wind Energy Zoning Ordinance, which permitted wind turbines in the mountain areas best suited for wind energy development. Since then, 35 turbines have either been installed or are in the permitting process within the unincorporated area. Additionally, 456 turbines have been constructed or planned in nearby tribal lands, state lands, Imperial County, and federal property. In 2018, the state mandated that all electricity shall come from carbon-free sources by 2045. In 2019, the board adopted an ordinance to implement a Community Choice Energy, or CCE, program. This is a critical step in achieving the county's goal of 90% renewable electricity for the unincorporated area by 2030. The state's renewable energy targets, as well as the increase in CCE programs statewide, will lead to an increase in demand for renewable energy. In April of last year, the board directed staff to evaluate options for streamlining the environmental review process for renewable energy projects, including preparing a programmatic environmental impact report, identifying ideal locations for renewable energy projects, and developing a design review checklist to exempt the process. There are many opportunities to improve energy infrastructure and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. For example, the county could increase energy resiliency by incentivizing battery storage or the development of microgrids. The county could also reduce energy consumption by making buildings more efficient through green building initiatives, weatherization, or energy audits. Lastly, the county could increase the renewable energy supply, either with distributed generation or with large-scale renewable energy generation. Large-scale differs from distributed energy generation in that these projects have a substantially larger generation capacity and feed electricity directly into the grid, whereas distributed options produce electricity to power specific buildings or facilities. The county may support some or all of these opportunities in a variety of ways. First, by lifting local regulatory barriers and permit streamlining. Second, by providing incentives to encourage development. Third, by directly investing in projects such as battery storage or microgrids at its own facilities. And fourth, by advocating for legislative change at the state level to further promote these energy initiatives. While the county may play a role in supporting a broad array of energy initiatives, its role is limited when compared to that of the county's future CCE. A CCE, as a market participant, can raise funding, leverage proceeds from rates, and advocate for legislative change through its industry contacts. We point this out as an opportunity to explore in the future to further enhance the county's energy infrastructure. In summary, there are a variety of opportunities to improve the local energy landscape and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Through our study, though our study investigated several of these opportunities, we focused primarily on streamlining of environmental review and permitting process and addressing barriers imposed by the county's ordinances. Specifically, board direction, in part, was to investigate options for streamlining the environmental review process for renewable energy projects, including preparing a programmatic EIR, identifying ideal locations for renewable energy projects, and developing a design review checklist. This direction led the team to focus its efforts on large-scale renewable energy projects. If fully developed in the unincorporated area, large-scale renewable energy could create up to 40,000 local green jobs and provide up to $6.5 million per year in health benefits by reducing harmful air pollutants from electricity generation. To streamline the construction of these large-scale renewable energy projects, the county may pursue and rely on the establishment of overlay zones. An overlay zone is a regulatory tool the county may use to protect environmental resources and guide development within a specific area. It allows the county to identify ideal locations for renewable energy projects and, in turn, encourage development of local carbon-free energy sources that will help us meet our renewable energy goals. An overlay's benefits includes the ability to designate the areas that are most compatible for renewable energy development and most favorable to neighboring communities and wildlife. At a preliminary level, PDS has already identified up to 70 square miles of area in the unincorporated county that could be considered for renewable energy development. The next step in the process would be to conduct a CEQA analysis and complete a programmatic environmental impact report. This provides an opportunity to address environmental impacts for the entire overlay zone up front and simplify or streamline the CEQA review process for future projects. Making the downstream project approval process easier will encourage renewable energy development in the overlay zones.
Staff began this project by reviewing renewable energy projects from across the region and determined that integrating renewable energy into the county's planning processes is critical to the long-term growth of local renewable energy. An overlay zone is our recommended approach to achieving this goal. Next, we conducted a site analysis to identify preferred locations for large-scale renewable energy projects. This was a complex task that accounted for many competing concerns. For example, a preferred site must be accessible to the electric grid while avoiding sensitive habitats and community assets. This process identified up to 70 square miles of land with the potential to provide enough renewable energy power to power nearly all of San Diego County's 1.2 million housing units. With a map of these potential overlay areas, the last critical step in our approach was to seek feedback from stakeholders. During the last several months of 2020, PDS shared preliminary overlay maps with a variety of stakeholders to gain their valuable feedback. We made several presentations to community plan and sponsor groups. The participants were incredibly helpful in identifying and explaining their concerns, such as a strong desire to preserve viewsheds, wildlife, and community character. We also heard several times that residents in East County feel they are being disproportionately impacted by the county's desire to develop renewable energy plants. Though staff's current effort is limited to identifying approximate potential overlay areas, as we move through the CEQA process, the county will refine and hone the precise boundaries of the overlay zone. We envision this to be a collaborative process where county staff work side by side with community members to shape our future overlay zone in positive ways. Staff also engaged with renewable energy developers who responded with a mix of reactions. Generally, developers support streamlining. However, some highlight that other market factors play a larger role in the siting process. The cost of land may be a big factor, and placing an overlay zone may make a desirable location even more expensive. Local components of Department of Defense were also contacted and expressed interest in partnering with the county on future renewable energy projects. Lastly, we held discussions with both the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. These agencies share the county's goals in providing renewable energy while minimizing impacts to ecological habitats and wildlife species. Through research, analysis, and outreach, we developed 3 zoning overlay options for the board's consideration. These are a solar energy overlay, a wind energy overlay, or a combined solar and wind energy overlay. Since solar photovoltaic PV arrays are suitable anywhere wind turbine farms are, this map only includes 2 categories: preferred areas for solar and preferred areas for solar and wind. The orange areas are approximate locations where only solar energy plants are feasible. The green areas are approximate locations where both solar and wind energy plants are feasible. These areas represent the county's best opportunity for large-scale renewable energy development. They were selected for a number of reasons, including accessibility to the electric grid and avoidance of sensitive ecological habitats and community assets. However, these areas are approximate and flexible. Should the board choose to move forward with an overlay option, a future task would be to complete a programmatic environmental impact report. During this future phase, the county would consider more definitive areas and more specific impacts. As previously mentioned, this future EIR phase would provide an opportunity for the county to work more closely with community planning and sponsor groups to ensure their concerns were understood and accounted for in the final overlay zones. The three options for today's discussion focus on large-scale renewable energy and include a solar overlay zone, wind overlay zone, or a combination solar and wind overlay zone. They are mutually exclusive and only one, if any, should be directed. Costs range from $800,000 to $2 million, and durations range from 2 to 3 years. These costs and timeframes are mainly driven by the need to develop a programmatic EIR. The benefits of SOZ1, an all-solar option, are that it has the greatest energy production potential. Solar power is the most land-efficient form of renewable energy and enjoys more flexibility in siting than wind power. This flexibility means renewable energy sites can be distributed more broadly around the county. Lastly, a solar-only option that does not incentivize wind turbine development would reduce impacts to birds and view sheds. The benefits of SOZ2 are mainly that the amount of disturbed land would be reduced. Though wind turbines require 10 times more acreage than solar to generate a megawatt, a wind turbine's actual physical footprint is less than a bank of solar panels. The benefits of SOZ3 are that we keep both options open as renewable energy technologies become more efficient and less environmentally impactful. We could also investigate the use of hybrid, co-located wind and solar systems to create more efficient renewable energy generation sites. Though we believe SOZs 1, 2, and 3 align with previous direction to develop options for environmental streamlining, staff is currently unable to make an overlay recommendation. Thus far, we have identified the cost of establishing renewable energy overlay zones, which are presented in this table. However, we have not identified the likely economic return on a multi-million-dollar and multi-year investment. The board could direct staff to proceed with a cost-benefit analysis to further inform the board's decision on whether to develop an overlay zone. We estimate this cost-benefit analysis would require approximately $50,000 and 5 months. In addition to zoning overlays, there are other regulatory and process improvements that can be made to further streamline a broader array of renewable energy projects. These opportunities, RP 1, 2, and 3, can be adopted along with an overlay option or on their own. Additionally, any or all 3 regulatory and process improvements may be adopted. They are not mutually exclusive. The first, RP1, would be for PDS to develop and implement permitting process for developers and accelerating project development. RP3 would allow the county to further evaluate, with inputs from industry and communities, the existing zoning and regulatory code and identify improvements to support renewable energy development. More specifically, the county would look at streamlining development of other energy initiatives previously discussed, such as energy storage and microgrids. For all regulatory and process opportunities, the costs are primarily driven by the need to hire consultants to assist in their development. The cost and duration of RP3 are greater because it involves adjustments to the zoning ordinance and, in turn, a CEQA analysis and EIR. However, its benefits are further reaching because it modifies more than the county's internal permitting process. It directly promotes a variety of energy initiatives. The resource and process improvements outlined here will help streamline renewable energy development in the unincorporated county, but will also give the county the opportunity to make lasting impacts on a broader array of energy initiatives, such as increasing resiliency, reducing consumption, and increasing renewable energy supply. For that reason, staff recommends the board adopt all three opportunities, and by doing so, the county would take another step forward in doing its part to reach California's 2045 carbon-free electricity goal. In conclusion, staff recommends the board receive the options report and find that it is exempt from CEQA because it has no potential to result in physical change to the environment, either directly or indirectly. Staff recommends board direction to implement RPs 1, 2, and 3, which will help streamline the permitting process and give the county the opportunity to make lasting impacts on a broader array of energy initiatives. The costs presented here are estimates that likely include some overlap. If directed by the board to pursue these items, staff will undertake a scoping process to refine the costs and determine specific amounts. This process would take several weeks and would be done before the operational plan is finalized. It would then become part of the proposed op plan for purposes of funding. Lastly, and as previously discussed, staff is currently unable to recommend an SOZ option. However, the board could direct staff to proceed with a cost-benefit analysis to further inform the board's decision on whether to develop an overlay zone. We estimate this cost-benefit analysis would require approximately $50,000 and 5 months' time. This concludes our presentation. Staff is available to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
So we want to get to our public comment. Before we do public comment, are there any specific questions of staff that someone would like to address before we hear public comment, or are we good to move forward and hear from the public? All right, I'll ask the clerk to call our public speakers, and then we'll come back for board deliberation.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Also note for the record that we received 83 e-comments on this item. We have 4 individuals that have requested to address the board on item 2. We'll be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You'll hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the audio record, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. You'll hear the sound when your time is up, so please conclude your comments at that time. And I'll remind the public speakers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. Aaron, if you could please identify the first caller.
Thank you. Our first caller is 5195. 5195.
Good morning, Chair and members of the Board of Supervisors. This is Jim Whalen at 1660 Hotel Circle North. I'll be quick. We support option 1. Actually, most of the good wind is gone and used up anyway. I want to make 3 key points. We agree with staff comments and are happy to continue to offer help to the board and staff. We are fortunate enough to represent most of the renewables developers in San Diego, so I'll start with that one. Number 2, I would support the CCA moving ahead now. You're very much needed in the market. Number 3, I want to make sure we have an environmental justice linkage for the affected communities. I just want to offer a couple of other added comments. We were fortunate enough to sponsor the legislation that created infrastructure finance districts as a vehicle to jumpstart infrastructure and provide an income stream to operate community benefiting facilities. Number 2, we also started 2 education foundations to fund STEM for Borrego and Mountain Empire school districts. Our clients are voluntarily funding that at $1,000 a megawatt hour. Number 3, the feed-in tariff idea is a great idea. It's already started by San Diego Community Power, but capacity is limited and it's more costly. But support to get this going is important. And that, again, I urge the county to get going on the CCA. And finally, proceeding with the CCA will stimulate such project actions that are positive, like a county investment in infrastructure. And I look forward to continue to work with the board and staff going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 4170. 4170.
Good morning, Chairman Fletcher and board members. My name is Donna Tisdale. I reside at Morningstar Ranch and Boulevard. I'm requesting 5 minutes as chair of the Boulevard Planning Group. Our group has voted unanimously to oppose the renewable energy overlay districts. They aren't necessary. And I personally invite each of you to come out to tour our ruggedly beautiful area to see for yourself why we so adamantly defend ourselves. For those who don't know me, I'm chair of the Boulevard Planning Group, elected annually as chair since 1991. I'm president of the nonprofit group Backcountry Against Dumps since 1987. I'm an award-winning community environmental activist. I'm a former board member for Boulevard Fire Department, Sierra Club San Diego, and the Protect Our Communities Foundation. I represent the majority of my community. My 82-year-old husband and I have a combined investment of 102 years of hard physical labor and hard-earned money in our ranch. These should be our golden years. Instead, we have to continually fight to defend ourselves and our community from massive wind and solar projects that represent increased fire risk, threat to public health and safety, invasive noise, electrical, visual, and light pollution, along with loss of habitat, cultural resources, open space, depletion of our soil source, well water, loss of property values, and our overall well-being. We have invested in professional wind turbine noise studies that document low-frequency vibrations at local homes over 5 miles away. Many local families have very limited income. The value of all of our local and private and tribal residents' personal investments, health and safety, and quality of life depends in large part on whether or not our ruggedly beautiful area is further sacrificed on the altar of so-called green energy. We should not even be considered for sacrifice until all urban, suburban rooftops, parking lots, and brownfields are covered in solar, along with other alternatives. My previous comments document that our marginalized, predominantly low-income communities already bear far more than our share of disproportionate and cumulative burdens with these projects. More massive projects have been approved for our area, additional massive projects in the pipeline, and even more have been withdrawn. We think enough is enough. Developers get the gold mine with these huge subsidies and tax credits while we get the shaft. Wind and solar projects are even allowed to operate and export energy to others during red flag public safety power shut-off events while we sit in the dark. That is not fair, nor is it equitable. 1/2 mile buffer for turbines is not enough. To date, no safe setbacks have been scientifically or ethically determined for these massive energy projects that can cover hundreds or tens of thousands of acres. All public funding goes toward promoting and streamlining these projects that result in unmitigated, uncompensated damages for neighbors at ground zero. There's little to no funding for real health studies for those who suffer adverse impacts. When communities do manage to fund limited professional studies of their own, they're dismissed outright because they document inconvenient truths related to harm. We are continually crushed by paid lobbyists, absentee developers, and landowners who have far more access to money and decision makers. These are important quotes from county departments' websites and documents that should apply here, but frequently are waived using CEQA's overriding considerations. The 2011 general plan provides a foundation for decisions that will protect the public from noise, natural, man-made hazards. Department programs such as building plan review, building inspection, and code compliance help maintain public health and safety. Public health services are dedicated to community wellness and health protection in San Diego County. Public health services works to prevent epidemics and the spread of disease and protect against environmental hazards. Disturbing, excessive, or offensive noise interferes with a person's right to enjoy life and property, is detrimental to public health and safety. Every person is entitled to an environment free of annoying and harmful noise. The purpose of this chapter is to regulate noise in unincorporated areas of the county to promote the public health, comfort, and convenience of the county's inhabitants and its visitors. Closing, our marginalized rural communities are resources that deserve and should be provided with equal consideration and protection law, not disproportionate and harmful, streamlined industrialization at our expense. Please say no to the overlay district. There are far better alternatives and investments of public funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 2596. 2596.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher and Board Supervisors. Micah Matrosky, environmental organizer, speaking on behalf of IBEW Local 569, the Electricians Union, 4545 U Ridge Avenue. IBEW 569 opposes all three proposals to create a new renewable energy overlay zone and the related renewable energy zoning and code update proposal RP3. The overlay zone could be misused to limit environmental review and limit the ability to impose conditions related to community benefits, labor benefits, and environmental benefits. A programmatic EIR for the overlay zone would not and should not eliminate the need for project-specific CEQA review, and excuse me, a programmatic EIR could potentially delay current project applications by shifting staff time and resources. We do support the proposals RP1 and RP2, which would improve renewable energy permit process efficiencies, including expanding online applications, consolidating all permitting information requirements into a streamlined single application process, and providing staff a checklist for more efficient review. IBEW 569 does not support RP3, the renewable energy zoning and code update. Other than making changes to enact an overlay zone, it is unclear what zoning and code changes are being proposed. Vague permit streamlining proposals are always concerning. If staff wants to move forward on RP3, it should come back with specific identification of the current zoning and code changes that it is looking to change and an explanation of why those current requirements need changing. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 0771. 0771.
Good morning, Chairman Fletcher and members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Joe Gabalden, and I'm SDG&E's Public Affairs Manager, speaking on behalf of my 4,400 colleagues. As you know, SDG&E is a recognized leader in innovation and excellence, as evidenced by winning the Reliability One Award for outstanding reliability performance among utilities in the West. This honor was the 15th consecutive time that we've received this coveted award. We're pleased to be able to provide some feedback on this important item. In 2018, SDG&E worked closely with staff to develop ideas for the Climate Action Plan. And we are looking forward to working with staff on the next plan. As the county moves forward with ideas and strategies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, there will be opportunities to build facilities to meet your goals. Collecting and storing renewable energy will be important and very beneficial for this effort. As a part of this item, SDG&E would suggest that the county also evaluate ways to streamline permitting for battery and fuel cell storage facilities and distribution systems. We value our relationship with the County of San Diego. SDG&E's team of highly trained experts will be happy to assist your staff to implement any direction the board so chooses. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you. And that concludes public testimony on this item. Chair Fletcher.
Thank you. Thank you to all the callers who came in. We've obviously spent a fair amount of time on this and then obviously delayed a little bit to allow everyone to, all the new members to get up to speed. I've certainly heard from a lot of folks throughout this process, same voices we heard today, about the very real concerns about the overlay type issues and what we need to do. And I think our best opportunity to really get more renewable energy up and done right in the right ways in the right time are the opportunities presented to us with items RP1 and RP2. I think those give us the clearest path forward. And I appreciate former Supervisor Cox and Supervisor Desmond for really initiating this very exhaustive review of all of these options and all the work that's gone into getting us here. And I think this gives us an opportunity to take a step forward. So I'll put a motion on the table to approve recommendations RP1 and RP2, and also recommend that staff develop approaches that could incentivize and streamline the development of distributed renewable energy generation. We certainly, our work is not done. So I'll put that on the table to get us going. And let me go to Supervisor Vargas.
I'll second the motion, Chair. And, I want to also thank, our team for this presentation and all the constituents that have reached out. I do think that it's really important for us to make sure that we're continuing to monitor and ensure we have as much information as possible to identify what step, the next steps are going to be in this transition. I think it's really important. But I also want to include options for assisting our communities in assessing what the infrastructure impacts and present solutions are going to be to benefit our region. And so if I would like to ask that staff not only move forward with our the 1 and 2, but also ask that they include options in 3 for addressing on and off-site energy storage, and also should account for community solar compatibility and standards. I think that performing this further analysis by including the RP3 option will present more data and information. I think it'll expedite the implementation of a county community choice energy plan. I also think that we need to provide more information for financing structures and demand reduction incentives. As this sector develops, I think that we need to continue to engage with the state on supporting this transition. Also provide policy options to incentivize or streamline the development of renewable energy generation at different scales through rooftop or parking lot solar, microgrids, and other community energy programs. We need to continue to work to understand the community level impacts and benefits, and it is my understanding that we can obtain this information through the renewable energy zoning and code update. And so, and I do want to, highlight that I've heard concerns from the applications that are currently in the permitting process for advancing the RP3 option. These are concerns in this program that EIR gets going, that it will shift focus away from existing renewable energy projects that are in process, and concerns that currently the RP3 option is vague, and that the result of this process will mean more projects will become ministerial and reduce the environmental review process. And so I heard people loud and clear, and so I want to make sure that by recommending that staff also, if it's possible, to either advance our RP option today, that the next steps are to define what the projects will be included in this option, what the project size are, what we're talking about, what processing options are available. I think that staff should provide clarification on our RP3 options and bring this back so we can understand what the option means for projects and processing. So I support the advancement of the regulatory and process options. And so I think 1 and 2, right? And then get additional information for 3, because I think time is of the essence, and this is not going to happen overnight, but advancing these options, I think, will have us give an opportunity to coordinate the efforts for our county to have this work integrated into our land development code in a more efficient manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Vargas. So 1 and 2 approve, and that's it?
And then ask for recommendations on 3 to get more of the data, right? And all the different questions that I had.
So ask staff to come back with more information on item 3?
Yes. To address some of the questions, that we've heard not only from members of the public, but then some of the other issues that I addressed.
Okay. Maybe we'll give them like 180 days. How's that?
That sounds good.
Okay. So just so we know, and then we'll go to Supervisor Wasson, Reamer, Anderson, and Desmond. I know probably all want to comment on this. So the motion on the table is to approve recommendations RP1 and RP2. We recommend that staff develop approaches that will incentivize and streamline the development of distributed renewable energy generation, and come back in 180 days with more information and updates around options surrounding RP3 after additional stakeholder engagement. Okay. Supervisor Watson-Reamer?
Thank you very much, Chair Fletcher. I just would like to acknowledge that I think this is an example of a county process that has gone quite well because there's been a lot of stakeholder engagement. We've had the opportunity to get stakeholder comments. And one of the reasons I'm supporting Chair Fletcher's motion here today is because, on consultation with the business community and all sorts of various stakeholders, environmental community, very clear that although people support the general orientation of the approach towards renewables, that the specifics proposed here are not in alignment with sort of the needs and the interests of our community. So wanted to really thank everyone who took the time and effort to comment and engage, let you know that I've heard you, we've heard you, and your contributions to this policymaking process are really vital. And that is why I'm going to be supporting Chair Fletcher's motion here today.
Thank you, Supervisor Wasson-Reamer. Let's go to Supervisor Anderson.
I'm happy to support the motion today. However, we're only looking at wind and solar. There are other renewables out there. I'd like to see us look at everything that's possible to make sure that we are covering the gambit. You know, the County Water Authority generates its own energy, and they do it by transferring water at different times of the day and generating their own electricity where they're paying the margins. We need to look at what they're doing and seeing if that could be expanded and whether it could help in a much broader way. Also, you know, I've read a bunch of studies, and wave technology has changed dramatically over the last 3 years, and we should be putting that on the table as well. These are sources of energy that can be running all the time, not just when the sun's up, not just when the wind's blowing, but is a consistent amount. And when you think in terms of storage and how much battery space we're going to need for that storage, any consistency of electricity is a step in the right direction. So if we could, I don't know if this is the motion or if there's, Chairman Fletcher, a way to perhaps in the next 180 days ask staff when they come back with the other information, perhaps include some of the possibility of all green energy and not limited to just 2 items.
So I think, Supervisor Anderson, what we could do in the second part, if it's okay with the seconder of the motion, we already have come back in 180 days with more information on RP3 after additional stakeholder engagement. And then we could add to that along with other renewable opportunities. And that would allow some time to explore some of the things you mentioned as well.
I support that.
Okay, good. Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate this. I'm glad that this was finally heard. This came back multiple times. Supervisor Cox and myself put this forward primarily to, you know, we understand that even though I didn't support the CCE, I don't really see government doing a better job than private business. The board approved it, and I respect that. And so we want to make the best of it. And that is primarily, we don't want to be just a purchaser of energy. We wanted to be able to be a producer of energy. And that goes in the unincorporated areas, you know, are primarily the best sites for that. But I did have a question for staff, and then just a continued comment on not doing the overlay. It appears that, you know, you've sort of already done an overlay and what you presented earlier. And you thought it'd be very costly to do that again. And one of your recommendations was potentially coming back with a cost analysis of doing an overlay. Would by doing another overlay, is that just redundant for what's already been done for solar and wind?
Supervisor, through the chair, the assignment tasked to staff was to investigate the options for an overlay. So we have not prepared the overlay. We've identified ideal locations for where an overlay could be located. And then we also analyzed how, when paired with a programmatic EIR, what benefits there would be for those renewable energy projects. As part of that task to staff, we did not look at the exact cost benefits or the rate of return on a type of investment like that. So our recommendation at this point is to hold off on the overlay zone unless the board were to direct us to further investigate those cost benefits from making that improvement.
Okay, well, I'm fine with not doing the overlay and going ahead with RP1 and 2 and parts of 3. But I would like to, you know, one of the things that many of the callers have called in and I've heard from my constituents is, you know, having these either solar farms or wind farms in the unincorporated areas, you know, they'd like to get some sort of local benefits, or they should be allowed some sort of type of local benefits to them. You know, there's currently a couple of solar arrays out in Borrego, but the citizens of Borrego don't get any real benefit. They don't get any cost and a reduction of their energy costs locally. The energy's made there and then it's shipped out, so they're not getting any benefits. And we hear from Boulevard and other areas that are heavily impacted with these types of projects. I wonder if you include in the motion that, you know, to bring back within 180 days, you know, what potential benefits might be able to be offered to these communities that, you know, potentially be experiencing the blight or dust or other, inconveniences by having these renewable energy sources in their communities. So if that would be okay with the maker of the motion to ask that the staff bring back what options or benefits might be allowed. Not that we vote on them, but what are the prospects?
Supervisor Desmond, Chair Fletcher, those are the items that I requested in my comments for the 180 days. Those are the things that I was mentioning that I wanted to make sure that's brought back. So we're on the same page.
Well, I just want to reiterate and emphasize that then this is a major concern for the people in the unincorporated areas.
And I think just to make sure we really encapsulate Supervisor Vargas's comments and Supervisor Desmond yours, what I would do is just add, and I'll restate it for the clerk, come back in 180 days with additional information on RP3 after stakeholder engagement, along with an exploration of other renewable opportunities per Supervisor Anderson. And then to make clear the two of you to also explore community benefit agreements, potential local hire provisions and other things that might improve the communities where these facilities are located.
That's good. Thank you.
Does that work, Supervisor Vargas? I think that's...
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was just smiling. I said, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay. All right, thank you all. Good discussion. Thank you again for all the staff work and all the community input. So just to restate, we have two sections to the motion. A motion by myself, seconded by Vice Chair Vargas. Section 1 is a motion to approve recommendations RP1 and RP2 and recommend staff also develop approaches that will incentivize, streamline the development of distributed renewable energy generation. Recommendation number 2 in the motion is to come back within 180 days with an update on RP3 after additional stakeholder engagement and include the exploration of additional renewable opportunities and the exploration of community benefit agreements, local hire provisions, and other mechanisms that might benefit communities. With that, we have a motion and a second. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. I also want to clarify that the motion includes recommendation 1, which is the CEQA findings.
Yes.
Great, thank you. With that, Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
I think what we'll do is jump to agenda item 7 and see if we can't knock out 7 and 8 before we break for lunch. Agenda item 4 will be a little bit longer, and so I'd like to try, if we can, to get through one, if not both of these before we break for lunch, and then come back and tackle agenda item 4. So with that, let's go to agenda item 7, notice public hearing Summit Estates tentative map. I will ask if there is a brief staff presentation on this item.
While the staff is getting settled, for those members of the public that requested to speak in this item, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided to you. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher and Supervisors. I'm Hunter McDonald with Planning Development Services. Today, Mark Slovic and I will be presenting on item number 7, which is the Summit Estates project. The department is before you today recommending approval of the project. Next slide, please. The project site, outlined here in orange, is located within the North County Metropolitan Subregional Plan Area, approximately half a mile south of California State Highway 78, and approximately 2 miles east of Interstate I-15. The city of Escondido boundary is approximately 350 feet to the southwest of the site, shown in gray. The project is located approximately 4.5 miles southeast of downtown Escondido and approximately 7 miles southeast of San Marcos, where existing employment opportunities and job centers could serve future residents of the project. Several major employers are located nearby, including the Palomar Medical Center, the Escondido Union School District, the Palomar Community College District, and the City of Escondido. The project is located less than half a mile from public transit, which includes bus service to downtown Escondido and the Sprinter light rail line that runs 22 miles along the Highway 78 corridor, connecting Escondido, San Marcos, Vista, and Oceanside. The project site is located at 2510 Summit Drive, directly adjacent to Palma Vista Court to the north, a private road serving 4 single-family residential homes. The project site is bordered by existing single-family homes to the south and the west on lots of less than 1 and 2 acres. The 20 single-family residential lots proposed by the project have been designed to locate the homes along the western and southern portions of the site, adjacent to the existing homes in the area. The site contains an existing single-family residence that will be demolished and removed with approval of the project. The project is a request to subdivide the site into 20 single-family residential lots. The project has been designed as a conservation subdivision, which allows lots to be smaller than the minimum lot size, provided they're consolidated away from environmental resources located on a project site. Along with the smaller consolidated lots, the conservation subdivision design of the project also proposes to preserve approximately 4.35 acres of the site in dedicated biological open space and limited building zone easements in perpetuity, shown here in dark and light green. The project would remove the site from an existing agricultural preserve and remove the A special area designator from the zoning for the site, which currently serves to identify the site as being located within an agricultural preserve. The project will include 4 stormwater retention basins to capture and treat runoff created by the project, shown here in blue as retention basins A, B, C, and D. Access to the project will be from a single private road entrance connecting to Summit Drive at the southernmost portion of the site. Summit Drive is a county-maintained road and will be improved along the project's frontage as required by the general plan. An internal network of 4 24-foot wide private roads will provide access to all 20 lots. Water service will be provided by the City of Escondido, fire service by the Escondido Fire Department, and individual on-site wastewater treatment systems or septic systems will be installed on each lot. The project will include sustainable design features, including installing solar panels at each future home, pre-wiring each future home to accommodate an electric vehicle charging station, providing a pedestrian pathway along the entire length of the property adjacent to Summit Drive, installing water-efficient landscaping that demonstrates a 40% reduction in allowable outdoor water use, planting a minimum of 40 trees on site, and reducing on-site energy consumption by installing Energy Star certified appliances and water-conserving faucets, toilets, and showers at each home. Prior to public review of the project, the county's 2018 Climate Action Plan, also known as the CAP, was set aside by the 4th District Court of Appeal and rescinded by the board. Therefore, compliance with the 2018 CAP was not utilized to determine potential GHG impacts for the project. Although the project will produce on-site GHG emissions through construction activities and ongoing residential use, the project's GHG emissions are below the threshold to identify whether the project would have significant impacts. The county considered the threshold previously recommended by the California Air Pollution Control Officers Association, or CAPCOA, when reviewing the project for potential GHG impacts. CAPCOA recommended a 900 metric ton of carbon dioxide equivalent per year screening threshold to determine the size of project that would have a less than considerable contribution of GHG emissions and that would not conflict with state legislation adopted to reduce statewide GHG emissions. Residential projects that include 50 single-family homes or less fall under this threshold and are considered to have a less than significant impact and do not require further analysis or mitigation. Although the project falls below this 50 single-family home threshold, county staff conducted a supplemental GHG analysis of the project and found that with incorporation of sustainable design features, the project would reduce on-site operational GHG emissions by approximately 40%. To consolidate the lots on the least environmentally sensitive portions of the project site, an administrative permit is required, which will allow for lots smaller in size than the 1 acre minimum. In addition to consolidating the proposed lots, the project proposes approximately 3.07 acres of dedicated biological open space along the eastern and southeastern boundary of the site to preserve biological resources. In addition to the open space, a 100-foot limited building zone easement, or LBZ, extending outward from the boundary of the open space is included in the project to ensure protection of the open space from building and fire clearing activities. The LBZ precludes the placement of any structures requiring fuel modification or vegetation clearing within the open space easement. Combined with the LBZ, the project will leave approximately 4.35 acres, or roughly 20% of the property, undisturbed, set aside in easements dedicated to the county in perpetuity for the preservation of biological resources. The project proposes lots ranging in size from 0.48 acres to 2.7 acres, with an average lot size of approximately 0.88 acres. Although lots will be smaller than the 1 acre minimum, the project would remain consistent with the maximum allowable density under the general plan. Additionally, the lot sizes proposed by the project will be consistent with the surrounding neighborhood, which includes a variety of lot sizes. For example, within a half-mile radius of the project site, approximately 33% of all lots are less than 1 acre in size, shown here in dark purple. And approximately 37% of all lots are between 1 and 2 acres in size, shown in light purple. The project's proposed lot sizes are consistent with existing lots in the surrounding area.
The project site is located within the Blodgett Agricultural Preserve, outlined here in yellow in the lower left-hand corner of the map. The project proposes to remove the site from the preserve, which requires a 15-acre minimum lot size for eligibility to participate in a future Williamson Act contract. Williamson Act contracts are agreements entered into by private landowners with the county to receive reduced property taxes in exchange for maintaining their land in an agricultural use. A previous owner of the property entered into a Williamson Act contract with the county on February 22, 1977, which established the preserve and authorized agricultural uses on site. Subsequently, the previous owner filed and recorded a notice of non-renewal with the county on October 24, 1988, indicating their intent to no longer pursue agricultural operations on the property and opting out of the Williamson Act contract. Presently, the preserve is not governed by a Williamson Act contract, which expired in 1997. However, because the 15-acre minimum lot size requirement could no longer be met for future participation in a Williamson Act contract with approval of the project proposes to remove the site from the preserve. Consistent with this proposal, a rezone is also proposed to remove the A special area designator from the zone box for the site. An A special area designation is applied to properties in the county subject to agricultural use regulations and which have been designated as being located within agricultural preserve. By removing the site from the Blodgett Agricultural Preserve, the A special area designation will no longer apply. The project was analyzed for transportation impacts using level of service, or LOS, which measures how well a road is operating based on the number of vehicles and the amount of traffic delay experienced by a driver. Operating road conditions of level of service A, B, C, and D are considered acceptable according to CEQA guidelines, while LOS E and F are considered unacceptable. The project used LOS instead of vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, because that was the guideline in effect at the time the environmental document for the project was released for public disclosure on June 25, 2020. A traffic study dated May 24, 2019 was prepared for the project that evaluated existing road conditions, vehicle speeds, and advisory signage. Summit Drive currently operates at an acceptable level of service B, which is a road condition of stable traffic flow with slightly more vehicles noticeable on the road than the best possible condition of level of service A. The currently operating level of service B condition will not change with the addition of project traffic. However, to increase traffic safety in the area, the project has been conditioned to implement advisory traffic signs on Summit Drive. These signs will provide advance warning to drivers as they approach the curves along the project frontage and are intended to help slow traffic prior to encountering the curves. As a result, the project will not result in a significant impact to Summit Drive, and potential cumulative traffic impacts will be mitigated through payment into the Transportation Impact Fee Program, which provides funding for the construction of transportation facilities needed to support traffic generated by new development. A site distance study was prepared for the project by a California licensed civil engineer. The site distance study certified that there is 300 feet of unobstructed intersectional site distance looking in both directions from the project's single entrance along Summit Drive, and 184 feet of unobstructed stopping sight distance from the project's entrance on Summit Drive, both consistent with the county's public road standards. The project will construct 4 internal private roads to private road standards and is conditioned to improve Summit Drive along the project frontage to public road standards, including road widening, concrete curb and gutter, and 10 feet of additional right-of-way dedication that includes vegetation for treating stormwater adjacent to Summit Drive and a decomposed granite pedestrian pathway. The project site is located within the jurisdiction of the Escondido Fire Department and is at approximately 1.9 miles away from the nearest Escondido Fire Station. The expected emergency vehicle travel time will be 4 minutes to the project, what meets the response time requirement of 5 minutes required by the safety element of the county general plan. Because the project is located in a high fire hazard severity zone, a fire protection plan was prepared for the project and was reviewed and accepted by the Escondido Fire Department and the San Diego County Fire Authority. The fire protection plan identified potential wildfire risks from the project, primarily from a potential fire in the creek bottom along the eastern boundary of the site in the proposed biological open space. However, it was determined this fire risk will be mitigated to the satisfaction of the Escondido Fire Department and County Fire Authority with incorporation of a 100-foot fuel modification zone extending outward from the proposed open space in which combustible vegetation will be cleared, roads designed for emergency vehicle access, ignition-resistant construction standards, and sufficient water supply to the project. The project is located in the North County Metropolitan Subregional Plan area, which is not represented by a community planning or sponsor group. Normally, a community planning or sponsor group would review the project at a publicly noticed meeting, hear from members of the public, and provide a formal recommendation to Planning and Development Services to approve the project with modifications, or to deny the project. Due to the absence of a community planning and sponsor group, and to provide members of the public an opportunity to participate in the project review process, a community meeting was held in Escondido at the East Valley Community Center on January 15, 2020. At the meeting, the project applicant, county staff, and 33 members of the public attended. The purpose of the meeting was to allow these interested in the project to ask questions of the applicant and county staff, express their concerns, and make suggestions related to the project design. Issues raised at the meeting pertained largely to traffic safety along Summit Drive, the location of the private road entrance, stormwater capture on site, and the lot sizes proposed by the project. Following the community meeting, an analysis was conducted on each topic raised, including traffic impacts, site distance safety, stormwater, and the project lot sizes. Taken together with ongoing discussions with members of the public and the project applicant, the analysis of project issues raised during the meeting resulted in specific conditions and mitigation being made a part of the project. For example, the project prepared and certified an additional site distance study to ensure and confirm safety of the proposed driveway location. And additional stormwater runoff will be captured on site in compliance with the county's watershed protection ordinance. A follow-up meeting was held with the community on December 17, 2021. At the meeting, staff answered the community's additional questions regarding the project and environmental analysis. Following the meeting, staff visited the property with an adjacent property owner to address concerns related to site distance. After the site visit, the applicant provided additional information to staff to address the concerns regarding site distance, which has been reviewed by the county staff at PDS and the Department of Public Works. CEQA mandates the use of a streamlined environmental review under CEQA Guidelines Section 15183, which applies to projects that are consistent with a community plan, zoning, and general plan policies for which an environmental impact report was certified. Projects that are consistent with the adopted general plan for which the general plan EIR was certified do not require additional environmental review unless there are impacts peculiar to the project or there are significant impacts not discussed in that EIR. The Summit Estates project was found to be consistent with Section 15183 of the CEQA guidelines because the proposed use and density are consistent with the general plan and no significant impacts not already identified in the general plan EIR result from implementation of the project. A CEQA 15183 checklist was prepared for the project and published on the Planning and Development Services website and advertised in the Daily Transcript newspaper. The county also notified agencies, organizations, and members of the public of the intent to adopt findings pursuant to Section 15183 during a public disclosure period from June 25th to July 27th, 2020. During the public disclosure period, staff received 3 comments. The first comment was from a member of the community concerned with the location of the project entrance and traffic safety along Summit Drive. The second was from the Rincon Band of Luiseño Indians requesting the project include an excavation and treatment plan for any cultural resources encountered during grading. And the third was from the San Diego County Archaeological Society requesting the 1928 and 1929 aerial photos of the site be reviewed prior to archaeological monitoring. Staff reviewed each concern and responded to each commenter. Site distance was analyzed and certified to be safe for the project. The 1928 and 1929 aerial photos were reviewed during processing of the project, and as recommended by the Rincon Band of Luiseño Indians, an excavation and treatment plan for the project has been made a condition of approval in the tentative map resolution. On November 13th, 2020, the Planning Commission considered the project and voted to recommend approval of the project with no added conditions or revisions by a vote of 7-0. The project would provide housing within a half-mile of public transit, within 4.5 miles from job centers located in downtown Escondido, and within 7 miles of San Marcos, and would reduce impacts to the environment and GHG emissions through implementation of sustainable design features. The project is consistent with the general plan, the North County Metropolitan Subregional Plan, and CEQA. Therefore, based on staff's analysis, we recommend that the Board of Supervisors approve the project and take the following actions. Adopt the environmental findings, resolution of approval for the agricultural preserve disestablishment, zone reclassification ordinance, administrative permit decision, and tentative map resolution, and require the applicant to enter in an agreement to defend and indemnify the county in accordance with County Code Section 86.201 in the amount of $500,000 and authorize the Director of PDS to execute the agreement. The board can either approve the project with modifications, send the project back to staff for additional analysis, or deny the project. If the board chooses to deny the project, the board should direct staff to prepare the written necessary findings to deny the project and to the return to the board for consideration at adoption at a future meeting. This concludes staff's presentation. We are available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I know we have a number of public commenters. If any members of the board have a pressing question they would like to get out there before public comment, please speak now. Otherwise, I think we should go into public comment. I know we have a group presentation on this, and get through that and then come back for board deliberation. Hearing nothing urgent, I will ask the clerk to take us into public comment.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Also note for the record that we received comments on this item. We have 2 individuals that have requested to address the board on this item, as well as a group presentation. We'll be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number, and you'll hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the audio record. For the group, you'll have 15 minutes. For the individual speakers, you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. You'll hear the sound when your time is up, so please conclude your comments at that time. And I'll remind members of the public that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. And we'll start with the owner and applicant presentation, the group presentation that includes a consultant. Last 4 digits are 4103, as well as 0916. And again, you'll have 15 minutes. You can self-regulate your time. Otherwise, I will chime in depending on how much time remains.
So if either of you would like to speak before we play the video, you may go ahead.
We'd prefer just to play the video if that's okay with you.
Great, thank you.
Give us a moment here. We're having some technical issues with the audio in the presentation.
Mr. Clerk, should we just do the couple speakers while we resolve the technical challenge on the group presentation?
I think that's a great idea. We'll go ahead and move on to the individual speakers while we address the presentation issues. We'll start with last for 2605.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Bruce Dunn. I live at 1252 Palma Vista Court. That's a private four-home cul-de-sac off Summit Drive in Escondido. My property is bordered on two sides of the proposed development. I've joined the opposition to this development approval, not because of the development, but because of the density that's been allowed through an administrative process that in our minds circumvents the intent and implementation of the general plan in our area. The area where we live is currently zoned A70 agriculture, which is a large part of why we purchased and developed our homes in this area, which is designated by the county general plan as semi-rural residential, SR1, which restricts home sites to 1 acre or greater and requires lot sizes to adhere to the county's LU2 table, which covers slope issues and restricts gross lot sizes to 1 to 4 acres based on the slopes of the property, slopes which this development clearly has. Of the proposed 20 lots, 18 lots are proposed to be less than 1 acre, which is completely contrary to the general plan directives, which protects our properties from this kind of density impact to our home and family lifestyles. By an administrative process called lot size averaging, this development completely avoids the intent of the general plan, which makes me wonder why do you have the general plan in the first place? Please consider voting against staff's recommendation and join us in saying that development is welcomed if it adheres to the lot size restrictions designated in SR1 and the county's LU2 table for slope lot size restrictions. This will ensure that our area will maintain the restrictions on the property development to 1 to 4 acre pieces and protects our investment and mitigates the development impact on our lives. With these changes, I can fully support the development. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. And we're going to take the next individual speaker while we work on the video presentation. So our next speaker is 5629. 5629.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Mauro Pierucci, and I live on Summit Drive. I am not opposed to the Summit Estate plans. However, I am opposed to the location of the proposed private driveway. About a year ago, there was a deadly accident on Summit Drive due to excessive speed. That's the interest that I have. I've sent Mr. McDonald a 12-second video that illustrates my concern. The video will show you a car that is driving toward the location of the driveway. You will see the car appear and then disappear behind the berm that is present by the side of the road. Can you play the video now, Mr. McDonald? Let me know if the video is playing.
Good morning, Mr. Perucci. We're pulling up that video right now.
Okay.
The video is playing now, sir.
Okay, as you can see, the car disappears as it moves about 100 feet from the S-curve on the road, and it reappears after it passes the berm that is beyond the mailbox. To estimate the distances, all that you need is to note that the reflectors along the road, along the double yellow line, are positioned exactly at 20 feet apart. The car does not reappear until it is 200 feet or less from the driveway. This video was taken from where the proposed driveway will be located. The civil engineer hired by the developer approved the 300 feet line of sight clearance that must be present from the exit of the driveway. However, by slightly moving the endpoints of the line of sight up and down along the slope where the driveway will be can change the visibility issue. I have mentioned both to the developer and to the county that the simplest manner to eliminate the problem is to have the berm that is beyond the mailbox is to shade the berm. I'm sorry, is to shade the berm that is beyond the mailbox. The berm is on the right of way that the county has, and I believe that the board has the authority to ask the developer to make the minor change of shading the berm.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now we will go back and play the applicant's video.
Good morning. My name is Keegan McNamara, and I'm honored to present the plans for 2510 Summit, a 20-lot subdivision in Escondido that I am developing with my partner, Oscar Urain. Oscar and I are both active in the Urban Land Institute, which is where we met many years ago. We're both very passionate about smart and sustainable developments. So with that as a background, we'll jump into a quick overview and some of the key features of this proposed development. Here's an aerial view of the property. It's in an enclave in Escondido off of Mary Lane above San Pasqual High School. It's surrounded on all sides by existing residential, and it is very close to many services, which I'll go through in some upcoming slides. Here's a summary of the distance to many places of interest in Escondido, including we're right above the fire station and Kit Carson Regional Park. We're very close to shopping, the zoo, the historic downtown Escondido, and many other features of the neighborhood. Here are some additional distances from the site, including transit. We're very close to 2 freeways and 2 transit centers. And schools, San Pasqual High School, as I mentioned previously, is right below the property, just 2 miles down Mary Lane. And the middle school and elementary school are very close as well. Here's a quick summary of the development. And I wanted to point out that this is a gently sloping hillside. A great amount of care and thought was put into how we laid out these lots. To have the lightest footprint possible. There's actually no retaining walls anywhere on the property. And the lots were laid out to maximize the privacy, but also the views, and to respect the rural character of the neighborhood that it's in. For a suburban infill development, we feel that 2510 Summit will be amongst the most sustainable projects ever built in San Diego, frankly. Here is a quick overview of some of the sustainable design features. I won't take the time to read each of them, but again, we're very proud of the sustainability that has gone into this development. This is an artistic rendering of what the property will look like for someone driving south on Summit. You can see there's a sidewalk where one currently does not exist, so there'll be public access, improving the circulation of the neighborhood. And the homes are set back from the street to provide minimal visual impact. And this is a rendering as one drives up Mary Lane to the intersection of Summit Drive. Most of the homes we anticipate being single story. There may be some 2-story homes as well, but the majority will be ranch style single story homes. there is no sewer in this neighborhood, so our development will feature a new modern septic system. These are, like I said, really new. There is one comp down the street, a new home construction that made use of these, and they were wildly popular with homeowners. There's many really sustainable features about this, which are listed here, but frankly, it makes for a beautiful lawn above the areas where the septic will kind of feed it, and that really reduces the need for using potable water for landscaping. There are over 4 acres that will be put aside in a permanent conservation easement. In addition, the setbacks and fire breaks that are built into our design will not only keep our future homeowners' property safe, but will also improve the fire safety of the homes in the immediately adjacent properties. Thank you so much for your time. It's again been an honor to present this project on behalf of my partner, Oscar Urenga, and we are, of course, available for any questions or comments that you may have. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And that concludes public testimony unless the applicant had any additional comments.
All right. Thank you for the staff presentation and all the callers who came in. Let me now turn to my colleagues and see if there's any comments on this item. Let me start with Supervisor Wasson-Reamer.
Hi, thank you very much, Chair Fletcher. Just have a couple comments related to the GHG impacts of the project. I do recognize that staff are using the California Air Pollution Control Officers Association recommendation of 900 metric tons per year as a threshold of significance for a 50 unit threshold. However, just noting that the vast majority of projects are going to fall under this threshold, so I am concerned about cumulative impacts. So not particularly specific to this, tied to this specific project, but more generally a comment for staff. I would like for us to develop criteria and a process for taking into account cumulative GHG impacts. I also want to recognize that this project was slipped in before the July 1st deadline and is therefore not subject to the new VMT guidelines. But it certainly highlights the need for us to sort out our interpretation and implementation of SB 743. I would like to see a shift from an interpretation that exempts the vast majority of projects from compliance to one that satisfies not only the letter, but the spirit of the legislation. That being said, I do want to thank the developers for putting a lot of thought into this project. I'm happy to see that the homes are solar, will be pre-wired for electric vehicles. And I want to emphasize that given that the areas around creeks and wetlands, that it's fenced and has signage to ensure it is biologically protected. So again, just thank you for that, and would like to move forward with that in mind.
Okay, so yeah, is it a motion to adopt the recommendations?
Yep.
Okay, happy to second that. Supervisor Desmond?
I just had a couple of questions for staff. If they could address what the callers had called in, the one about that berm and the potential shaving of that berm, if that's necessary or not. We heard about the site distance. And then also about the lot averaging that was brought up. Could staff address both of those for the callers that called in?
Supervisor Desmond through the chair. In regards to the berm, it's incorrect. The site distance certification was actually performed at a different location. The video does not show the proper location for where the new driveway access is going to be provided. Based on where the location will be, they have certified that there is 300 feet of intersectional site distance as well as stopping site distance. It will not require any improvements or grading of that berm that was shown in the video. In regards to the second issue the lot size averaging. The general plan actually encourages the use of what's called a conservation subdivision, which is to cluster the development in the area where it minimizes impacts to sensitive biological resources. That's exactly what was done on this particular project. They are consistent with what the density is allowed on the property of 20 homes, and those lot sizes were decreased to avoid that sensitive biological area on the eastern portion of the project.
Okay, thank you very much for the clarifications, and I'll be supporting this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Desmond. Supervisor Vargas.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher, and I want to, I am going to be supporting this item, but I do want to say that I understand that this project was aligned with the county general plan, and I support Supervisor Tara Lawson-Weimer's recommendation. But I am still concerned that there's no affordable housing in these units. But I know that today is a new day, and we're going to be discussing this further during the, we're advancing the new direction of the general plan. But so I will support it, but it concerns me that there is no affordable housing in these units.
All right. All right. With that, we have a motion by Supervisor Lawson-Weimer, seconded by myself, to approve the recommendations in this board letter. Seeing no other comments or questions, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Weimer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
So let's move to agenda item 8. I think we can knock this out, break for lunch, and come back and do our final item, which is number 4. Agenda item 8 is the California State Parks Off-Road Highway Motor Vehicle Recreational Grant Program application. This has been brought forward by Supervisor Anderson. I'd like to turn it to Supervisor Anderson if he'd like to make some brief introductory comments, and then we'll go to public comment.
It's thank you very much, Chairman Fletcher. It's very straightforward. California State Parks are offering grants for up to $1 million for planning. This money, if used wisely, could greatly reduce vehicle miles traveled to potential new parks. And we're on a short time frame. That's why I put it on the last minute, because otherwise we'll miss the application time for this grant.
All right. So ask the clerk if there's any requests to speak on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Yes, we have 2 requests to speak on this item. Also note for the record that we received 2 e-comments on this item. For those individuals that requested to speak on item 8, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We will be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of the phone number, and they will hear notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. I'm waiting for these individuals to call in at this time. I'll note, Chair Fletcher, that both individuals are in favor of this item, and it looks like we have one of them has just dialed in. We will identify that individual by the last 4 digits of their phone number, and again, you'll need to press *6 to unmute your phone, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. Aaron, if you could please identify the caller.
Yes, our first caller is 2750. 2750.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board, Dan Silver, Endangered Habitats League. I will keep it brief. We are in support of this item. There is a need for these facilities. The state program is a sound one. We note the difficulty in citing them, however, and urge that the stakeholder group with environmental representation should be part of the process. But we do support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the other caller has not called in at this time, Chair Fletcher.
All right. Let's go to board deliberation. Supervisor Anderson, I take your comments on your item to be a motion for approval.
Yes, please.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Desmond. Any board comments? All right. Ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Weimer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Anderson. Agenda item 4 is going to be a lengthy one, so we're going to go ahead and take a little bit earlier break. I think we'll reconvene at 12:15. We will start with agenda item 4, our final item on the agenda today. So with that, we will recess for lunch until 12:15. Thank you all.